Hi, welcome to Dinim number 2. We're getting started 10 minutes late from our usual 15-minute spot late. Technical difficulties, but we're back on the saddle. Let's go. All right. This is technically the inaugural launch. We preempted last week because we never keep anything uniform. That's how things generally run. And so here we go. It's actually good that we launched last week because it got people introduced and things. What's that word? Introduced, an introduction to the material. The official material we're going to launch with is Sanhedrin 56A. You should notice the screenshot in the whiteboard. That, again, I'm kind of disoriented just because of the English and the whiteboard and the image and all that. But you should be able to realize, hopefully, that what you're looking at on the whiteboard is Sanhedrin 56A. I don't know how clear it's going to be until we figure out the whiteboard technology. So you're to take my word for it. That is Sanhedrin 56A. What we're doing, what's the goal? What are we trying to achieve? I would rather tell you what we're trying to achieve after this night's class. Is that okay with you guys? I can tell you now, but it'll just be self-explanatory in about 1 hour from now. Every other week, we're going to do it normal. I'm going to tell you what we're going to achieve going in. Okay? But right now, I just want you to go through this, and it should be very clear and apparent afterwards why we did this. Okay? So let's start throwing out a couple of concepts. James Rogers, if you can just keep that mic on for me.
Roger.
Here we go. So, and in no particular order, I want these things to be on your mind. And just give me a 1 when you hear when I ask for confirmation, so that I know that you're plugged in with me. There is such a thing as Noahide law. Let's go. 1s. Let's see all your 1s pop up. Let's go. There are 7 laws of Noah in the doctrine of Noahide law. Keep the 1s coming. The 7th Noahide law, 7th law of Noah, is Dinim. Eric Bryan and I have a working argument. What does Dinim mean? In Hebrew, you don't even need to translate it. It's called Dinim. You're going to read it in English, establishing courts of justice, type 1. It isn't. Okay, that is an English thing. How many of you have heard the term halacha? How many of you pronounce it halakha? Because it's written in English, halakha. But it's actually called halacha. Same thing here. You're being manipulated by English translations, Gera's convert, right? And therefore it is skewing your perception of reality of the 7 Noahide laws. Namely, it is not the need to establish courts of justice. That is part of it. And there is a need to establish courts of justice. But that is not the law. The law is called Dinim. And with Dinim, that's the law. It includes, there's an aspect, establishing courts of justice. What we are here to do is at this junction where we are, is the learning of the Dinim. What are the Noahide laws? You understand? Give me a 1. What are the nuances of Noahide laws? Now, did I not say there are 7 laws of Noah? So can't we just say Dinim is don't kill, don't steal, yada, yada? Is that the extent of Noahide law? No. There's more to it, right? Am I allowed to extort Eric Bryan and spread rumors and false pictures of Photoshop of him, character assassination, yada, yada? Could that be akin to murder? I ruin his career, his family, his legacy, you name it. Is that murder? Well, that would be a good question, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that be a good question? Someone went on an assault. They physically did not kill Eric Bryan, but they tried their hardest to ruin every aspect of this man's existence. That would go before a Noahide trial, a Ben Noach court. We would establish the court, the motive, all the things involved, and if the person was found guilty of trying to kill Eric without actually shedding blood, it's a good question, isn't it? Is that murder? Does that carry a death penalty? If it doesn't carry a death penalty, what is the crime? Was there a crime? Obviously there was a crime. If it wasn't murder, was it blasphemy? Somebody saying, I swear I saw Eric do it. Was that the crime? So you would have to figure out and ascertain what is the crime, da-da-dee-da-da-da. Give me a 1 or a 2 on this. This would be courts of justice, establishing courts of justice. But are we just here to try Eric's killer? Or should we at least try to learn what are the laws concerning this? Right? How far does murder go? How far does blasphemy go? The Rambam and Rashi have an argument about adultery. If a man sleeps with his slave's wife, is that adultery? 1 or 2? Some say yes, some say no. It has to be you cheat on your wife with, or whatever it is, spouse on spouse. That's, I think, Rambam's view. If it's not literally adultery, you didn't commit the crime. So you could actually say that's a merciful law on one hand, right? You have to really break the law to break the law. But on the other hand, if you do that, I'm sure the slave isn't too happy that you slept with his wife. 1 or 2. So where's the justice for your slave? Rashi says you're guilty. You know what you did. You did something. You know what you did. So we would have to learn to find a resolution or the depth of the law of the Rambam, Rashi, and what is justice. A man slept with his slave's wife. What is the law? Is he liable of death? Is there a penalty? What is the scope of the law? So we see the law goes beyond the normative and simple 7, 1 or 2. Now, where do we find Noahide law? Now we're coming into the scope of tonight's class. Where do you find Noahide law? Not really. Not really. It's not clear. What it requires is yeshivish study. Our good friend, Rabbi Alan Cecil, likes to say, svara. He's actually right on that point. They have to get the svara, the logic of the law in the Talmud. The Talmud offers the logic. But where Rabbi Cecil falls short is he believes, and I like to use he as a benchmark because he has kind of inspired me to do this class, is that people think that the 7 laws themselves are the source of the law. Right? So if I know everything in the Talmud about Ben Noach and the word murder, would I be able to know every inch of the law of murder concerning Noahide law? He believes that Sanhedrin 56a would tell me enough about Noahide law where it says, Ben Noach doesn't kill, doesn't steal, and I'm supposed to use my Jewish prophetic powers to just somehow derive Noahide insight from the secret lineage of rabbis and their writings and works to know the scope of law. Is that how it works? No. It's not how it works. What the Talmud does is it uses what our good friend Ger Shampoo likes to call Ger code. How many of you have heard me or others refer to Ger code? And people want to blame Ger code that it's a status. I'm the Ger who eats nevela. I'm the Ger in your gate. I am the Akum. I am the Goy. I am the Ben Noach. I am the Ben Noach who keeps Shabbat illegally and secretly, and I don't tell my my rabbis that I do that. Right? How many of us have heard these arguments? What there is, however, is a Goy, is an Akum, is a Ben Noach, is a Ger Toshav, is a Ger Tzedek Jew convert, Ger Tzedek non-Jew non-convert. Correct? We've heard these terms. So if these terms are not labels, then what are these terms? The terms are used in the Talmud because they're not biblical. We've already been down that road. We know that biblical, there is something called Bnei Yisrael, there's something called Nachri, and there's something called Ger. Correct, Amundo? You're either Jewish, not Jewish, or you're going Ger. It is that simple. It is that simple. The Talmud makes it very difficult, right? They're going to say, our good friends that asked Noah, they're going to say the Ger of the Chumash is a convert because the Talmud refers to a Ger as a convert. That's what they would say. Then they would say Ger Toshav is something different, and because there's no Jubilee, there's no Ger Toshav today, correct? That's what they say. But that is very shallow and weak. The Talmud actually does use the terminologies, and it takes knowledge and wisdom to know how the terminologies work. That's number one. Number two, since we're discussing the terminologies, what are the terminologies for? That's where we bring in our good friend, Rabbi Cecil. The terminologies are to show Noahide law through Svara. Remember our friend Nathaniel Davis made a nice lexicon. Hopefully he'll do it in this class as well. What is Svara? If you guys saw his lexicon, logical deductions in law, please refer to Nathaniel's work. It's a good work, and I hope he continues. With that said, now we're ready for today's class. All right, we're in. There's something called blasphemy. You ever hear this? One of the 7 Noahide laws called blasphemy. Hold on, it's going to turn off this little chiming device on my mail. It says it is off, but why is it should be off? There we go. Okay. There's a Noahide law called, or I'm sorry, not Noahide law. Back up. There's just a law. There's a law in the Torah called blasphemy. You hear this law? 1 or 2. And there's a story in the Bible, in the Chumash, of what is the story? The kid was blaspheming, and they brought it before Moses, and they had the kid executed. Correct? Then, when you look up the verse of the classic blasphemer, it makes very strange mentionings. And let me find the verse. Hold on. Where's our verse? I forget where the verse is, but I believe it mentions the Ezrach and the Ger. Is that correct? The native and the Ger. I think that's the verse right there. No, that's a different one. Hold on. If you can find that verse, I'd appreciate it. But I believe it mentions the native and the Ger. It is at the end of Vayikra, isn't it? Yeah. There it is. It should be Vayikra. I thought it was in Bamidbar. That was the guy who broke Shabbos in Bamidbar. 24:16. You guys have this? Leviticus, Vayikra, 24:16. Let's go ahead and read this. And I don't hold by Art Scroll, but I do use it for simple translation. And let's just see how they translate Ger for while we're at it. 24:16. Is that what he said? 24:16. Okay, ready? And a man, if he strikes someone, hold on. The son of an Israelite woman went out, and he was the son of an Egyptian man among the children of Israel. They fought in the camp, the son of the Israelite woman, an Israelite man, and an Israelite man. The son of the Israelite woman pronounced the name and blasphemed, so they brought him to Moses. The name of his mother was Shlomis, daughter of Divri, the tribe of Dan. They placed him under guard to clarify for themselves through Hashem. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, remove the blasphemer to the outside of the camp, and all those who heard shall lean their hands upon his head. The entire assembly shall stone him. And to the children of Israel, the Jewish people, you shall speak, saying, any man who will blaspheme his God shall bear his sin. And one who pronounces blasphemously the name of Hashem will be put to death. The entire assembly shall surely stone him, proselyte and native alike. When he blasphemes the name, he shall be put to death. Rabbi Arthur Scroll is telling us that this ger, and it says in the Hebrew, or is it? Keger ke'ezrach, like the ger, like the native. They want to call this a proselyte. What do you think? I don't even know what a proselyte is, but they say it's a proselyte. See the problem already? It might be a problem. Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe I'm the problem. They want to say I'm the problem. Kigiora kiyatziva in the Aramaic. Now, I will tell you, a ger code giora is all language ger, and you have to figure out from context which one that is. Now, I've already prepared this. I'm just taking the long route. See if we find anything. That's what we do. That is what we do. I like the long route. Let's look in the Migros Gedolos just to see if anybody is going into what kind of gear this is. I've already done this, but I wanted to see, again, if we can find anything. Okay? You follow where I'm at in Dinim now? You see why we're in Dinim? This is not actually the din I want to do. But since we're here, I want to know, just learning, okay, pshat. I want to know pshat. I have the right to know pshat. Do I have the right to want to know pshat? Yes or no? One or two. Do I have the right to say, hey, I'm not convinced this is a convert. I want to know what kind of gear is that? Maybe it's not a convert. I don't know. Why do I have to be told it's a convert? The Art Scroll said proselyte, but didn't tell me what a proselyte was. So do we have that right? Do we have the right? Okay, Rashi's not going to tell us. And Sforno's going to say, Kager ke'ezrach ve'ein zeh ha'ayishu zeh. Okay, he's not telling us either. He's not telling us either. Kager ke'ezrach. They say, look at our Gemara. That is what we're going to do. That is what we're going to do. Thank God. Okay. Evan Ezra's not telling us. Rashbam is not telling us. No one's telling us. You see that? No one has identified our gear. And that's not necessarily a problem. It's just, don't tell me it's a convert. No one said it's a convert. Do you hear my point? We want to know pshat. Why are you telling me it's a convert? No one has said that. No one. Arthur Scroll decided to tell me. But classic authorities, nobody. Nobody. And we're going to find dirt. Don't you worry. We will find dirt. We're taking the long route. Because that's what we do. Now we're in the Torah Tamima. This is a book. You should be taking notes on all these things. I'm teaching you tools, Eric Bryan. This is the scriptures with a commentary called Torah Tamima, which tells you where the verses are found in the Talmud and what the law of the Talmud speaks about that verse. This is a great tool. Keger ke'ezrach. They're quoting our Gemara. Okay, here we go. Now they're going to quote the Sifri. So guess where we're going to go? Anybody know where we're going to go now? Anybody know? I just said it. We're going to go to the Sifri. Again, where are we going? To the Sifri. Why are we going to the Sifri? Because Torah Tamima said so. The Sifri is called Midrash Halacha. It's the halacha based on scripture by the rabbis of the Talmud. Do you understand that? That's like when you see Rabbi Akiva says in the Talmud, this is where they took the writings of those rabbis and they formulated the halacha, which was based on the scripture. The halacha is not pshat. There is something called pshat, and there is something called lefi pshuto. Pshat is whatever God intends in the verse. Lefi pshuto is how are we to not include everything? Reboy, right? Nathaniel Davis, you should be hearing that word if you're going to record this. Reboy and miyut. Reboy, include everything. Miyut, this or that. Pshat is always reboy. We want to know the most wisdom. The halacha is miyut. It's not trying to be the ultimate truth. It's trying to say, what is the law? What is the din? This is called what? Dinim. We're not here to show the Ein Sof and the Sphirot coming on to the head of this Ger and the Ezrach. Not what we're doing. We will do that later. We are to turn din into mercy. Again, everyone should say that out loud in their own Dalet Amos. We are finding the din and turning it into mercy. You cannot get to mercy unless you first come to the din. Okay. We have some feedback coming through there on your end, James Rogers. Now, we're in the Sifri. We are in the Sifri. And we heard a rumor that they were going to talk about our Ger. There we go. Okay, we found it. Ready? We're in the Sifri, Vayikra 24:16. Nothing changed. Same verse. Are you with me? One or two? Are you with me? One or two? Here we go. Kula Ida Kabali. Okay, Ger. Here we go. The question the Sifri is answering, which Ger? Isn't that a good question? Isn't that a nice question? Which Ger? Ger. Ze ha-ger ke-ger l'rabos nashe gerim. This is the Ger, like Ger, to include female Gerim. Ezrach or native, this is Ezrach, ke-ezrach, l'rabos nashe ezrachim. Okay, now I'm going to tell you something pretty powerful here. How does the Rambam refer to a convert? There's a verse in Numbers 15:15. Kachem kager. Like y'all converted at Sinai, y'all will convert in the future. Those that are going to convert. The code, the ger code for that is called kachem ger. Just call it ger. Got it? Ger. When you see Rambam say kachem, kager, which the Rambam will shorten to just ger, that is convert to the Rambam. When it's not a convert, those authorities might call it ger toshav. Now, remember, that is a Talmudic dictum. The Chumash never speaks about a ger toshav or a convert. You have to know the wisdom of the verse. So the ger toshav, in regards to living in the land of Israel and Jubilee, that is one type of ger toshav. What's the answer? There are many types of ger toshav. Ger toshav is simply an easy way to say not convert. Then there are different mashma'ut, implications of the type of ger toshav. Does toshav mean settled, like as in terms of setting up your tent? Does it mean settled as in, hey, I'm here, I'm okay, I'm settled, I'm okay with being ger? Does it mean you're my neighbor? Does it mean you are on the land of Israel halachically? Many different ways of taking the word toshav. So when you see ger toshav, or they'll say, today we don't have ger toshav. Not exactly true. There's the Jubilee ger toshav, but there's also the ger toshav who eats nevela and is in your gate as a way to qualify ger with toshav, so we have some semblance of who we are talking about, not as a status, just kind of a where are you at? Where are you at? Type 1 or 2. So our kager here, if you want to say it's the Rambam convert ger, because 1515 is the one place in the Chumash that is specifically speaking about a convert kager. Can we make a havamina? Write that down, Nathaniel Davis. I'm going to call you out in every video so that you can make the lexicon. Havamina. What is a havamina? I would have thought, know that expression, a havamina. I would have thought that the kager here is a convert. Would I not have thought that? 1 or 2. Our verse says, like the ger, like the native. Are we speaking about a convert? You should type 1 because it's a really good question. You should all type 1 because it's a really good question. I would assume that this ger is a convert. Just like we say kager is a convert in 1515 numbers, correct? And the Rambam teaches as such. When I come to Vayikra 24:16 and speak about the blasphemer, I'm going to say this is a convert too. Can I say that? Let's go. Type 1. Comes the Sifri commentary and says, no. You're so silly. Ger here is not really kager. It's really hager. But we're saying that the ka literally means like. But by our Rambam kager, convert, it doesn't literally mean like you all converted at Sinai and in the future, Like is a ger code word. Meaning it doesn't mean like at all. We have to call it something. So God, when he wrote the Torah through the prophecy of Moses, it was kachem kager. And you really don't need to translate it. You just say kachem kager. So when we're in our verse, and it says kager ke'ezrach, that doesn't mean the ger code kachem kager. It literally means like. So how do I know if it means like anywhere else? Like David Katz said. Well, how do I know? Are you saying literally like David Katz said? Or is it just kind of like David Katz? That's called wisdom. You have to know how to translate. You have to know the connotation. You have to know what's going on in the verse. Then you will know, is it ger code or is it literally a scriptural meaning like? And you'll say, but how are we supposed to know? We don't speak Hebrew. How are we supposed to become sensitized to speak the Hebrew? We're not Jewish and didn't grow up in yeshiva. Well, guess what? I didn't grow up in yeshiva either. And being Jewish in Dayton, Ohio, eating gefilte fish did not help my chances either. It's called you ask questions, you research, You look it up and you find the answer, just like we're doing now. There's no special privilege or special code, right? It's called, you get the elbow grease out, you look up the books, you call and you ask who you need to. Hey, I found this letter, Hebrew letter kaf, that seems to suggest the word like. Does it literally mean like a ger? Or is it just kind of like, kager? You need to learn the concept which transcends space and time. It has nothing to do with linguistics. It has to do with wisdom and understanding in your personal refinement and development to be able to hear the difference between a literary concept and just a concept, one or two. In Vayikra 15:15, it is a concept. Like y'all, like the future. It's just a concept. You really don't need to translate it. And you find out because the Rambam wrote it as a concept. Here, when we go to the Sifri, we find out, hey, the concept went away. It's a literary word. That Hebrew letter kaf, as in ger, he's saying it really is the ger. So then why does it say ger? Because it just does. So what is the implication of the ger that we are reading as ger, but is really the ger? It's coming to include ger women. If it would have been ger Rambam, like our conversion, it would have been convert ger. But it isn't. It's coming to include ger women. And we make a connection with ger and the native. Correct? And the native here is including female natives. So when we compare the ger to the native, we're saying just like the female natives are even here, the female gerim are also here. So right now, all we know is the Aramaic says all kinds of ger, and the Sifri is saying at least it's so inclusive the females are here. But there's something called a diuk. You understand the word diuk? Nathaniel, write that word diuk. An inference is a diuk. Since it is not talking about the Rambam ger, we make the conclusion that it is making a mute, excluding the convert. Why? Because we said it, the ger here is not a convert. So who is our ger here? He is not a convert, at least according to the Sifri, type 1 or 2. All types of ger that are not convert. So then, is the convert allowed to blaspheme God? No. So where do we find the convert in the halacha? A convert is called a Jew. He is now native. He can marry our daughters. We don't taunt the ger convert. He is a Jew. When it says like the native, he's a Jew. When it says like the ger, it's a ger. That's the Sifri way. Okay? We now did the Sifri. And I don't see a Malbim on this. So Mistume, there's no Malbim on this. Now let's get a little bit cheeky and see the Midrash HaGadol. Because I like to do things the long way. You guys like to do things the long way? I like to do things the long way. That's what people don't realize. Midrash HaGadol is where Rambam got most, if not all, of his material. It's another work of Midrash Halacha. Make sense? Then they'll say, oh, but Rabbi Katz is looking up a minority opinion. No, Rabbi Katz is not looking up a minority opinion. Rabbi Katz is looking up the root of the opinions. Meaning there are opinions, and then there are the places those opinions came from. Rabbi Katz is looking up the source of the opinions. That's called Dinim. Knowing where the law is derived from. Otherwise, it's called a New Testament. Or in other words, a Kitzer Shulchan Aruch, which does not work, especially when lives are at stake. You don't bring out the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch and poskin on someone's life. You understand? Kager ke'ezrach. He brings our Talmud 56a, which is the halacha, if I remember correctly, in the Rambam. Okay, let's see here. Follow along on the whiteboard. Try to find the guy whose name starts with M. Misa or whatever. It's going to be something like Misa. You see it? Type 1 when you got it. Rabbi Misa. Does that make sense? Yeah, there it is. Right-hand side, Rabbi Misha. Something like that. Look for Rabbi Misha. Rabbi Misha says a Ben Noyach that curses, blasphemes Hashem with a nickname. My Taima Amar Kra. Why does this... why does he include a Ben Noach? Because the verse in Vayikra says, Ger ke'ezrach. Ger ve'ezrachu da bo'inon benigvu shem aval goyim bekinoi. Okay, we are going to go back to that. Don't worry. That's the crux of the whole deal. But we need to know what kind of ger it is. Ger. Ze ha-ger. See that? See how everyone wants to say, hey, you're going to make a false conclusion here. You're going to think it's a convert. You see him doing it? You see that? He's saying you're going to think it's a convert. Don't think it's a convert. Ger ze ha-ger. Yichap? They're telling you, don't think it's a convert. It's a regular ger. A ger is to include female ger. Ezra, the rabbis, nashi ezrachim. Okay, so the Midrash Gadol is in unison with the Sifri. We now have a shtickle consensus that it's not a convert. Let me just see if I can get any more halachic works on this. The Torah Tamima quoted our Sifri. The other authorities didn't want to go there. Let's, for fun, look at Targum Yonason. Want to look at Targum Yonason just for fun? Sometimes he throws in something interesting. He is Yonason ben Uziel. He is also a sage from the Talmud. And he is very interesting. Sometimes he gives you a different look. A refreshing look. Ach, mish mafarish machar shemo shel Hashem mut yamud ragam regalet dedalit kol ada kager everything kol ha'eda kager ke Israel bezman sheichar v'shemo. He says kol ha'eda, which means kol kinishta. He's saying everybody. The reason why, this is very nice. He's saying the ger convert is obvious. He's a Jew. But he says, Kol Kanishta. You ever hear of a Beit Knesset? A synagogue called a Beit Knesset? House of gathering, all people? In Hebrew, you call it Kanishta. Or in Aramaic. He's saying it's the language is Kanishta in the Aramaic. Meaning everybody who was traveling from Sinai, Jew and non-Jew. One big kanishta, one big group, Edah. Therefore, by definition, you have to say the non-Jews included. You have to. And it's included for the word ger. That's why the Aramaic Onkelos says giura, which means every type of ger, which means every type of non-Jew. Everybody is brought into our discussion of blasphemy. Do you see where this is going now? You see how the hard extra work has already opened up this thing immensely? Nobody on the planet is exempt or free to just curse the Lord. Right? And they're getting it from our verse, Kager Ke'ezrach. And we want to say that God, when he said ger, he was saying everybody, right? That's what we're saying from the Tanaim, the sages of the Talmud. The Jews, we're going to just say it's an obvious given that they're not to blaspheme God, correct? Okay. But our friends, Rabbi Cecil and company, they strongly question if ger is relevant today, don't they? And I'm not here to advocate ger. I'm not particularly a ger advocate as far as the hat that I'm wearing today or the yarmulke that I'm wearing today. Because that would be biased. And I'm not planning on being biased. This is a class of dinim. Dinim of the Noahide laws 1 through 7, one of which is blasphemy, another is dinim, 1 or 2. And the question from our friends is, what is the svara of the Noahide law to understand is a ben Noach, a Noahide? Is he commanded against blasphemy? We know that to be one of the 7. But to what extent can the Noahide blasphemy or not blasphemy God? If he calls God by a nickname, is that considered blasphemy? If he calls this or that, this and this, and then, right? We want to know the scope and extent of a ben Noach, lefi dinim, the extent of blasphemy, correct? But we only know 7 laws of Noah, meaning we only have a doctrine of 7 laws. Don't kill, don't steal, yada, yada. So where would a person learn the scope of the Noahide law of blasphemy? Do you hear the question? Where would I go to learn about blasphemy of Noahide law? 90% of people would tell you to read Divine Code because that's the Shulchan Aruch for Noahides. I wish that were true, because then it would mean the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch is true and the world would be a better, easier place. But that's just not true, and I can prove to you it's not true, because you have to have wisdom when learning law and on Torah, and frankly, there's just no wisdom in parroting a poorly translated English document that's making a good attempt to explain Noahide law. Therefore, how do we derive Noahide law? Because the reason why it's a question, it doesn't exist. You hear why I'm being a bit jest in my statements. It doesn't exist. There's no such thing. So if someone presents to you Noahide law, it doesn't exist. Now, we can derive Noahide law, we can find Noahide law, but once you tell me there is written, clear Noahide law, there isn't. There just isn't. And we're looking at the page right now where that Noahide law is theoretically derived from. And we are supposed to use, by the request of Rabbi Cecil, svara to derive the law, and we will. He's right. That is how you do it. So the Jewish people do not blaspheme. 1 or 2. Okay. And we're going to learn it from a verse about the ger and the native. Is that correct? And we know that there's a Noahide law not to blaspheme, correct? But you're not here to find out if there's a Noahide law of blasphemy, are you? Because I'm pretty sure you know it by now. You probably read Divine Code 5 billion times if you belong to the Divine Code camp. So what is your question? What is your question? What do you want with Svara? What does Rabbi Cecil want from us? What does Dinim want from us? I want to know. Rabbi Katz wants to know, can my friend the Noahide curse the Lord with a nickname? Is that a good question? I want to know, can my Noahide friends get killed for cursing the Lord's name with a nickname? Because I already know that if you do it by the name, that a Jew is liable, and I know that Noahide law number whatever is liable also. And I'm not here to teach you the 7 laws of Noah, because that is silly. We all know it. There's a billion rabbis on the planet teaching the 7 laws. Okay, I don't need to sit here every day saying, hey, everybody, there are 7 Noahide laws, don't kill. Okay, we know that. So for my skeptics out there, when I don't repeat 20 billion times the 7 laws of Noah, I expect you to know that. If you consider yourself a ger, I expect you to know the 7 laws of Noah. That should not be said. It is a rare teaching. Dinim is a rare teaching, but I don't need to tell you that Dinim exists. You should know that. You should know that. I didn't ask you guys if you tied your shoes. Okay, we know these things. But if we're going to throw a bone to our friends over there, they want to know the svara of the law. What they're trying to say is the extent of the law. And the reason why Dinim never go anywhere is people don't know what that means. What does it mean? Tell me the extent of the law. Does it mean if I'm angry at God and I call him a name, do I get killed? No, these are not what it means. We want to know Dinim, not opinions and people's point of view. I don't think you should do this. That's not Dinim. That's your opinion. We don't give opinions. If you want to give an opinion, then that's your opinion. And that's called philosophy and hashkafa, and more power to you. We want to know, what is the din? What is the din of a non-Jew when he is blaspheming? God forbid. What is the extent of that? And according to Sanhedrin 56a, can this non-Jew use a nickname of God in a very bad way to receive a death penalty? That is our refined question. You hear the refined question? It's a refined question because the Talmud is asking that question. If you don't want to learn that question, then don't come to this class for Dinim. Go to a different class. This class is exploring Dinim, the din of that question. From that question, and as we answer it, we will see how Noahide law works. We will find the svara of Noahide law. Do you understand that? It's about din, making it din. It's not supposed to be all-inclusive and or Ein Sof. We are getting it down to a very small kernel. And then we will find the wisdom and logic, svara, in that small kernel, to find God's will in that small kernel. Thereby, we will know with much greater detail, turning the din to mercy, how God's law works for the non-Jew. Can we start now? Okay. Just to give you some background, there's something called a Jew, type 1. And they're basing this law from the Jewish law, type 1. And the Talmud assumes that you know there's a creation called a Ben Noach, which is a non-Jew, type 1. and he has a prohibition of blasphemy, type 1. That's where the law stops. And that's where the Talmud starts. You understand? We have two precedents of a Jew and a non-Jew. But that's all we know. That is all we know. So what is the question? The question becomes, what do you do with the white parchment around the black ink? I.e., what is that non-Jew? How do we get to his law from the Jewish law? How do we get from A to B? You understand that? How do you tie one law to these two peoples? Because I don't even know if I believe in the Noahide laws. I believe in the Jewish law. It's written in the Torah. And I know my rabbi told me there's a Noahide law, right? My rabbi told me I cannot blaspheme the Lord. But how do we know it? How does it work? Where's the contrast? Where does it come from? Does anybody know the answer to this particular question? They get it from a Ger verse. They bring a Ger verse. And I'm not talking about you people on Facebook who call yourselves Gerim. We're talking about a verse of wisdom from the Torah. It says explicitly, Keger ke'ezrach, 1 or 2. And from that verse, the sages have analyzed. And they're not talking politics. If you notice, nobody mentioned Jubilee either, did they? They simply brought the word ger. They analyzed the word ger. And there are derivatives from ger around how it degenerates into the non-Jew and how it accelerates into the Jew. You can call it a rainbow if you'd like to. Pun intended. Jew, convert, non-Jewish ger blend this to the lowest common denominator ger, 7 law, Noahide, all the way to your friend the Nachri, the Akum. As we said, everybody is going to be included in the prohibition of blasphemy. And we have a non-Jew and a Jew. But the Torah brings a ger verse. And I mean just this word ger, whatever it means, and somehow 56a will decide the leverage of the law with the contrast of a ger verse. My point, if we're going to cut to the chase, how do you derive Noahide law? It is impossible without ger verses from the Torah. And we're not talking Gerings and Facebook ger and Waco, Texas ger conference. We're not talking Jubilee ger, whatever poor connotation you want to ascribe to that. We're talking the wisdom of the Torah. How do we know a non-Jew in his involvement with the law? The Torah itself says, learn what is called ger Torah. I don't know what a ger is. All I know is there is ger in the Torah, and to derive Noahide law, the sages have mandated investigating what they call ger Torah, or Torah verses that speak of ger, 1 or 2. We're talking no bias, no subjectivity, no relationships, no feelings, no friends, no sympathy, no mercy. It's called Dinim. Is it not called Dinim? It's called Dinim. No favors granted. We want to know, how do we get the Noahide law of blasphemy explained in greater detail? And the answer is the Talmud brings a verse about ger. So when these people say there's no ger today, is that even a question? It's like a Mitch Hedberg joke. He goes to a restaurant to get a chicken sandwich, and the waitress says, would you like your eggs cooked? He says, I never thought about it that way. How about incubated, and then raised, and then grown, and then killed, and then plucked, and then stuffed, and then put on a grill? I don't have time for a sandwich like that. scrambled. So when we speak about ger, and you say there's no ger today, I'm already thinking Mitch Hedberg joke, okay? That's how off base that person is and how out the left field they are. It literally is that crazy. If you say there's no ger today, when we speak about ger, you might as well have quoted to me a Mitch Hedberg joke. Let's go. Okay, James Rogers, I would like you to read with me in the English. I'm going to mirror you in the Hebrew. Go with me where it says Talmud Lomar. Does it say Talmud Lomar by you? What does it say by you? I can't see so far. Let me see here. Man, where does it go? Hold on. Oh, yeah. This is hard. Hold on. Man, this is very difficult. Very, 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 very difficult. 416. Man, this is difficult. How do you do this? Yeah, they're kings. Kings. This is hard. I don't know, Loretta. I don't know if. Oh, you did. Hold on. Close those. Oh, you did. Okay, wait. Come on. This is driving me nuts. The presentation aspect is not fun. Okay, Moshe and Aaron. Where's Moshe and Aaron? Where's Moshe and Aaron? Moshe and Aaron. Okay. There we go. Moshe and Aaron. Now, where did I lose it on this page? Moshe and Aaron. Hold on. There we go. All right, James Rogers, start reading from and Moshe and Aaron. We're going to get a running start, and I'll tell you when it gets particular for us. Just read where it starts with Moshe and Aaron. The fourth line down, everyone, we're changing the spot now. Our rabbis taught. Go from there. Our rabbis taught. Go with me.
Our rabbis taught this verse could have said a man.
Stop. Just always go with me, okay? There's a verse somewhere else, and it brought two languages of man. And what the question the Talmud is saying is, it could have said one man, just one time, man. And that it has to do with our type of thing about, killing, bloodshed, all these types of things. Noahide law. So go ahead.
That was Leviticus 24:14. It's to include idolaters.
It is to include idolaters. We have a tradition in this verse, okay? And where's that verse? I don't know where, again, to find it on the target right here. The point is, where's that verse? Hold on. Gimel, wait a minute. I'll tell you what it is. Gimel, parentheses. It's in Chagiga 11b. Let me get a Chagiga 11b. You know why? Because we do things the long way, don't we? We do things the long way. Chagiga 11b. We do things the long way. So the verse, because they're bringing a phantom verse, they're basing the whole argument on that verse. We have to know what that verse is. Don't you have to know what that verse is? All right. And they're okay, hold on. 11b, Chagiga. There it is. The verse you want to know is Vayikra 18:6. Vayikra 18:6. What are we going to do now? We're going to look up what? Vayikra 18:6. Ready? Here comes Vayikra 18:6. Are you ready? Here comes Vayikra 18:6. Vayikra 18:6. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Any man shall not approach his close relative to uncover nakedness. I am Hashem. And in that verse, in the Hebrew, ish, ish. See how it says man twice? Ish, ish. That verse, we learn that Noahides, or the nations, are guarded in immorality similar to a Jew. And apparently when it says ish, ish, it's coming to include the akum. And we're going to look that up. 1 second. 18:6 in the big book. Give me 1 second to step away. 1 second. Where is that again? It's Vayikra 18:6. Hey! Vayikra 18:6. Give me 1 second to step away. Okay, Vayikra 18:6. We want to know, is it really true that it's coming to include the non-Jew? You hear the question? How do we know? How do we know? Because we do things the hard way. We go the long route. We do more than we're supposed to do. Then we know. 18:6. Ish, ish. Rashi's not telling us. Evan Ezra, cool, ish. Ah, you like this. This is the Evan Ezra from the Mikros Gedolos. It doesn't get more classic than that. Kol ish, ve'ish, every type of man, person. Uba'avor shalo hizgir mebeis Yisrael. It doesn't say a man from the house of Israel. Lo na'zov hager. Don't forsake the ger. Shiasa chas me'tovos nizchris artzenu shalo yitame esa aretz. It's saying that the ger cannot bring immorality into our midst. Now, he's talking about the land, but does it have to be a particular ger? That's already interesting. You see why it's interesting? Our commentary is saying it includes ger, but the Talmud is saying it includes akum. And what do we know about akum and ger? There is a type of ger who is an akum, and it's like the Palestinians types, the Philistines, also, right? The 7 Canaanite nations. They were ger because they were local, and they were akum. So there is such a thing as an akum ger, lowest common denominator. Pretty interesting, is it not? So already we can say our ger friend could be akum on the lowest common denominator, and it's not a problem. So not only is it relevant to the Noahide, even to the idolater. So where will we get Noahide law? From ger idolater as the lowest common denominator. We're looking now in the Sifri. Ish. Ma Talmud Lomar Ish Ish Laviyas Ha'akum She'im Ezharim Al Arayas B'Yisrael. Right. The akum. We are guarding against the akum from immorality. The akum in the presence of Israel cannot do immorality. So, very interesting, is it not? We have the prohibition of the akum and ger from ish ish. So it really is every type of non-Jew. I find that to be fascinating. I don't know about you. And there's a Malbim on this. Malbim is the commentary on the Sifri. Kefil Hashem Yoyer Lerov Ala Klalus Kamo Vayi Hema Oisim Goy Goy Elohav Uperish Kol Ish Ish Ubo Rabus Akum. And then in Sanhedrin, it's Tarek Barayas Yisrael Urias Dido Yalif. Okay. All right, James Rogers, continue, please, sir. Go ahead.
All right. It is to include the idolaters, that they are prohibited in blessing the name of God, like a Jew, but they are only executed by the sword because...
So the non-Jew is executed by the sword, which is a halachically lower way of dying. And I don't mean I'm better than you, I died by the sword. We're just talking in just levels of punishment. Nothing to do with higher, lower, in terms of better, worse. It has to just do with style. No, that is called Chassidus and Kabbalah. We are talking strictly law, Dinim. The Jew dies, I think we said stoning in the Chumash, and the level of the Akum who's brought in here, he is dying by the sword. That's a din of Noahide law. So we see that the Noahide law is different than the Jew, fundamentally. But we don't know why. We still don't know why. The Rambam does poskin this. So the Noahide laws die by the sword, number one. It's a different way of dying than by Jewish law. So the big question is why? Why lower? Why is it a different status of law? Not the person. The law is in a different status. Continue, James Rogers.
Because all executions mentioned for Noahides are only by the sword.
Why? That's the question. You hear now the question. Why? Continue.
Is this really extrapolated from here? It is extrapolated from there, the Lord, Genesis 2:16. This is teaching the prohibition of blessing the name of God.
So stop. So therefore, 20, Genesis 2:16. We don't learn Noahide law from Noah. Don't we learn Noahide law from Adam? And God commanded him, don't eat from the tree, which the next page of Sanhedrin says all 7 laws come from that one law of Adam. Continue, James Rogers.
Rabbi Yitzchak Nefka says, we only need the verse that says any man to include blasphemy with substituted names in the prohibition.
Stop. The verse of the blasphemer. Very interesting. Nice dose of wisdom just came down. You hear that? I don't know if you guys caught that or not. He's saying we don't learn Noahide law from Noach. You hear that? He's saying we don't learn Noahide law from the blasphemer. We don't even learn it from Noah. We learn it from Adam. Because all 7 laws are derived from Adam, or the 6 laws. What he's saying is, since we know Noahide law from Adam, then we need to know a chiddush of the Noahide law through Moses of Sinai, the case of the blasphemer, tells you that Noahide law contains nicknames. So it sounds to me that the Noahide laws really do go back to Adam, which we say also on the next page, and that is not a drasha. It's actually literal. And Noah simply instituted them. It's the B'nai Noach, because he repopulated the world of Adam's fallen world. The B'nai Noach are following the 6 laws of Adam. And they're called the laws of Noah because Noah got the additional don't eat the limb of a living animal. Which we do know to be true because meat was modified between Adam and Noah and then Israel. Meat has always been a modifier, which makes sense that the Ger mitzvah relies on meat. but that is already a merciful question, a Hasidic, Kabbalistic question. Therefore, what does Sinai do for the laws of Adam, if you will, is it gives the details of the scope of the law, just like Torah was expanded to the Jews on Sinai through Moses, greater than, if you want to say, the days of Abraham. For those that want to consider Abraham Jewish in a non-literal way, Sinai then would be an opportunity to expand on Noahide law. And we are seeing then that we are already knowing the command is from Adam and blasphemy, but the verse of the blasphemer is coming to include nicknames. But our nicknames for Jews, our nicknames for non-Jews, how does it work? Continue, James Rogers.
And according to Rabbi Meir, as we learned, I hope I have his name right, and any man who curses his God will carry his sin.
Stop. Ish. Oh, it is on our page. Yeah, Micah 24:15. There it is. So we learn from our Ish. Read the verse again, please.
And Rabbi Meir, as we learned, any a man who curses his God will carry his sin.
Right, so it's a different Ish. Okay, so this Ish, every man, right, was as James read, and we are going to assume that, we're really going to, so the Talmud is going to tell you that the non-Jew cannot curse his God. But we know that from Adam. And we're going to learn a Chiddush about the non-Jew, and also we know the Jew cannot curse his God. So apparently there's something called blasphemy, and it's an expansive law, and Sinai Revelation expanded that more than the days of Adam, more than the days, let's say, of Noah, more than the days of Abraham. Sinai was unique, for the Torah law came down, instead of just saying, don't blaspheme from wisdom, the law and the scope of the law came down. Continue reading, please.
What is Torah teaching us? Was it not already stated in Leviticus 24:16? And he who blasphemes the name will surely be put to death.
So why is the Torah telling us twice, don't curse God? Just tell me once. Continue.
Right. Since it is stated, or I'll read it here, and he who blasphemes the name will surely be put to death. Since it is stated, and he who blasphemes the name will surely be put to death, it could be that the would only be liable, that he would only be liable for the death penalty on the explicit name. From where do we know?
No, stop. You read it wrong. For the explicit name, stop. Now say from where. Go ahead, continue. It's a question. He's asking a question. From where? Read.
Shem haf.
No, say from where would we know to include all the nicknames, right?
Okay. Yes.
Read it again. It's a weird way. You got to learn how to read it differently. So read it as read again.
It's tiny.
Learning how to read is essential. Okay, because it's not English. Go ahead.
From where do we know to include substitute names?
Exactly. I already know that I can't call by God's main name a problem, and if I do, I will die. How do I know, or from where do I know not to use nicknames? Go ahead.
This is why it teaches to say, a man who curses his God, in any case, these are the words.
No, stop. The man who curses God. So I now know from one verse, don't curse God, and another verse, even through nicknames. 2 verses, expansive law. Continue. In any case, these are the words of Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Meir has this law, and Rabbi Yitzchak wants to say it's just like Rabbi Meir. Continue.
But the sages say, on the explicit name with death and on substitute names with a prohibition.
So stop. So the rabbis argue. Only on the explicit name do you get death, and on nicknames you get a warning. Rabbi Meir argues with the rabbis, so we don't have a clear view of the law. Continue.
And Rabbi Yitzchak Nefka is in disagreement with that of Rabbi Misha. Since Rabbi Misha said, a Noahide who blesses the name of God.
That's it's called Lashon Naki. It means blasphemy. Go ahead. With nicknames.
Substitute names is liable for the death penalty. According.
So how do we know this? So this is a total chiddush. The Rambam is posketing here. This is the law for Noahides. And he's going to simply state, I guess it's a tradition from Adam, a Noahide cannot curse God with blasphemy. But somehow, Rabbi Misha wants to say that if a Noahide blasphemies with nicknames even, he's put to death. Where does he get that from? I don't know. But that's what he said. Continue.
According to the sages.
Right.
What is the reason?
Why? Why would you kill a Noahide for a nickname? Why not like the rabbis that maybe just give a warning? I don't. Why are you making this law? Now stop. Is this not why we're here? Don't we want to know the logic or svara of Noahide law, ladies and gentlemen? Yes or no?
Absolutely.
Isn't this exactly why we're here? Isn't everyone Noahide on the planet going to learn the Rambam and say, hey, if I blaspheme with a nickname, I'm put to death. I'm an Noahide. And isn't Rabbi Cecil wanting to know why? And isn't the Talmud now telling you why? One or two. Are we not about to get our answer why? Okay, read James Rogers.
Since the verse stated in Leviticus 24:16, like the stranger, convert, like the native.
So like the ger, like the native. The reason why a Ben Noach is killed for blaspheming with a nickname is because the Talmud says it's from a verse. It's called Gezeres HaKasuv. The Torah simply has written explicitly like the ger, like the Ezrach. Is that fantastic or what? And you know what? I looked at every commentary. Nobody has a reason why that what the meaning of that verse satisfying the question is actually doing. It's a total anomaly. Now, for those that understand ger, and there are those that do, it's not as much as an anomaly. When I say that it's not known, meaning you can't make a din like, oh, this is why. Because there are many reasons why. Because there's many types of ger. The bottom line is they brought the ger verse to prove that point. And I think I want to read Rashi to you in a minute at least. But just continue reading for a second. Go ahead.
That is when we require that he blaspheme the explicit name, but with an idolater, it is even with a substitute name.
Yeah. So that verse with the Torah, the blasphemer, is only talking with an explicit name of God. But an idolater, even a nickname. Now, here's where the logic comes in. And Rashi is going to explain that logic, I think, better than I do. Go ahead and just keep reading, then we're going to do Rashi. Go ahead.
All right. And with Rabbi Meir, that like the stranger, like the native.
He uses the verse for a totally different reason. Why does he use the verse? Continue.
What did he do with it?
Yeah, what did he do with that verse? Go ahead.
The convert and the native with stoning the idolater with the sword.
He learns not that the non-Jew is killed from making a nickname, but the Ger verse tells you that the non-Jew gets the knife rather than stoning. Because the penalty of Kager Ke'ezrach is skila, and therefore a lower level is with the knife. Because it would have said the Akum, the Ger, and the Ezrach. Since it said Ger and Ezrach, only the Ger and Ezrach get stoning. Therefore, what is the Ger to Rebbe Meir? You should all say convert. Why? Because the convert gets the same type of death as a Jew. Type 1. Then Rebbe Meir would say that the non-Jew, since we know he's obligated from blasphemy, but he's not included in the penalty, his penalty must be different. What then is his penalty? The knife. Sword. The other guy who said even nicknames are here. How's that going to work? One second. It's a good question. How's that work? 1 second. It's a very... The Ger and the native are obligated in the name of God explicitly. But because it didn't say Akum, thereby we know Akum are guilty when they do it. It has to be the Akum has a bigger Kiddush, and that's a nickname. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been listed. And then for him, it's obvious he gets the sword. Continue.
You would think to say, since the idolaters are included, they are included completely.
I would say, hey, we're all guilty here, so we should all get the same penalty. And you should say that for Rebbe Misha, Rebbe Meir, right? If I'm a Ben Noach, a non-Jew, if I'm a Ger, Jew, convert, if we blasphemy, we should all be treated the same. Read on.
Even with regard to the actual death penalty. This is why it implies to teach us otherwise, and Rabbi Yitzchak Nivka.
Stop. That's why it teaches us otherwise. The additional verses in the Torah are here to say, through conclusions and inferences, if you are included in the verse, you are included in one penalty, one din. If you are excluded, yet you do know that you are commanded, then it carries a different law through inference. Continue.
Okay, let me back up here. And Rabbi Yitzchak Nefka, according to the sages, that like the stranger.
How does he use the verse? Rabbi Meir used it his way. Rabbi Misha used it his way. How does he use the verse according to those rabbis? Kachger ke'ezrach. Continue.
Okay. What did he do with it? Okay, now see, I'm going to have to read that whole again. According to Rabbi Nefka, Rabbi Nefka, according to the sages, that like the stranger, like the native, what did he do with it? The convert and the native, that is, when we require that the action be done to the name.
That's when we blaspheme God's name. Continue.
But with an idolater, we do not require the name by the name.
So by a non-Jew idolater, Akum, We don't read. It's not mandated only did you blaspheme God's name. Continue.
According to the sages, why do I need a man?
Why do ish lama li? Why do I need to say ish?
The Torah spoke in the language of man, according to popular parlance.
All right, so that's it. That's the answer. So to tell you that the Torah speaks the language of man. So the Ger Ezrach for him is telling you to leave out the non-Jew. We know he's obligated. But ish, he uses for a different reason altogether. So he said, I mean, nifcha, this is the Ramos of Ginoim. Ish. Right, Rabbi Meir had the thing why he used ish. So he uses ish different. And we're going to read Rashi on this. Okay, so now let's get Kap and Rashi. Ready? Now it's going to come clear. Even clearer. All right, now we're back up in understanding where Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha argues with Rabbi Misha, and Rabbi Misha is the halacha. Keep that in mind. Had Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Nizhar v'hem yuchad nami b'ha azhara. Wait, did I do it right? No, wait, where am I at? Skip the line. I did it wrong. Skip the line. Had Amar Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha l'rabos eskinoyim. Alibad Rabbi Meir. The mashma. So Rabbi Yitzchak agrees with Rabbi Meir, and we want to say nicknames are illegal for non-Jews. That implies that the rabbis, who are not Rabbi Meir, Potter ben Noach al Kinoyim. So there's a view that says a non-Jew is not guilty for blaspheming with nicknames. We don't hold that as that is the true law, at least in theory right now. Okay? There's nicknames are guilty, nicknames are not guilty. Type 1. Type 1. This argues with Rabbi Misha that he holds even though we say the rabbis on nicknames are warned in Israel. There's another set of rabbis that say nicknames are warned. Not completely irrelevant, just you get a warning. However, on an akum is chayiv. A Jew is warned on nicknames, but a non-Jew akum, he's killed. And how do you know that? Keger ke'izrach. He learns it from a verse. The other guys, we don't know where they get their opinions from. As it's written, ger ve'ezrach. Ezrach is an extra word. See, it's like why is that written extra? Ger and Ezrach. Shema mina, we hear l'chiyuve oivdei koichavim b'kinoi. He's saying that. Ger ve'ezrach yisera. I already know a Jew. But because it continued with ger and Ezrach extra, we have to conclude, since we know that Akum are guilty, that even with nicknames, they are killed. Rabbi Meir, the Amar ger ve'ezrach chayv b'kinoi israbu me'ish. Rabbi Meir holds the same thing. But he learns it from ish, not our ger verse. Rabbi Meir doesn't use our ger verse for that. He uses our ger verse for something different. Mamai come and my ger. Again, me ish. Mamai come my ger ve'ezrach. He learns that What does Rabbi Meir do with ger and ezrach? He learns that it refers to B'nai Noach. So the man verse from Rabbi Meir is, I know that non-Jews are guilty on nicknames, a very specific din, but the ger verse by exclusion is B'nai Noach. And that's the answer. That's the end. That's where we're going to stop. Now, what did we accomplish today? We accomplished the following. Did you learn a law about Jews? Yes. Did you learn a law about a Noahide law called don't blaspheme? Yeah. Did you use Dinim law to understand Noahide law? Yeah. Did you use the right place and tools? Sanhedrin 56a. Yeah. What did you learn? The bottom line, how do you learn nicknames are forbidden for B'nai Noach? We know that you can't blaspheme. How do I know the scope of blasphemy? Correct? And we concluded a Noahide cannot blaspheme on nicknames. And we already knew that from the Rambam and our Kitzur Shulchan Aruch Divine Code, right? Rabbi Cecil wants to know the Svara. How do I know how Noahide law works so that I can have wisdom in Noahide law and not just parrot 7 laws that don't even come from Noah, come from Adam, except for one? And the answer is by nicknames. If I know the dinim of nicknames, I will better know blasphemy and Noahide law. Is that correct? And where do I learn the nickname blasphemy law for B'nai Noach? From ger verses in the Torah. So we can conclude, where does B'nai Noach halacha come from? Ger Torah. Without ger Torah, you would not have known Noahide law halacha dinim. Why is ger essential? Because you cannot learn B'nai Noach halacha without ger Torah. I don't know if you're a ger, but I do know that there is something called ger Torah that the sages have brought to teach and elucidate Noahide law. The entire planet is prohibited from blasphemy. Non-Jews have a different law than a Jew. It's called B'nai Noach, learned from a ger verse. Now, is a ger a non-Jew? Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to understand from this ger verse. When he says ger, does the ger follow the Din Yisrael, or is he a convert and thereby a ger as we know? Is he really a Ben Noach like Rambam 10:10 Hilchos Malachim? The answer to that is already a deep question. That's where we said no one has been able to know exactly why that verse was brought about the ger, because it includes everybody. The bottom line is, if you are holding by Din Yisrael, then your halacha, like Rambam 10:10 Hilchos Malachim, you are not killed by a nickname. If you are clearly not a Jew and not a ger type of ger, but ger akum, ben Noach stam, you are killed on nickname. if you are questionable where you're holding, do I follow the law of Israel or the law of Ben Noach in blasphemy? That is why there's something called Ger Toshav, where you accept on yourself, I am a Ger Toshav. I follow my Dinim according to Din Shel Ger Toshav, which is the Din of Ger in the Torah, which follows Din Yisrael where applicable. If you are not prepared to do that, then you are not a Ger by the Din Shel Ger Toshav. Nonetheless, the law for this one and that one, all the law of anybody not born a native Jew, your law was derived from Ger Torah. Whether you were a convert Ger, a Ger Toshav Ger, a Jubilee one-day Ger, or an Akum Ger. Thank you very much. That's all.